coming out tonight and listening to me. As Ray said, my name's Leonie and I'm with the Eastern Community Legal Centre. I didn't realise I was his second choice, but that's okay. I apologise, I'm not your first choice. We'll make do with what we've got. A couple of things just to say on the outset. I'm not a lawyer. I say that with pride in the sense that it's not something I've ever wanted to do, but I work in the capacity of using the law to help people. And I come here tonight as a community organisation. We employ lawyers. I have the pleasure of managing lawyers who do amazing work. But just so that we know, I'm not here to give any kind of legal advice. I can give some information. I can certainly share some knowledge that I've got over the years, but I'm not a lawyer. So I'm from the Eastern Community Legal Centre. I don't know, has anyone in this room heard of a community legal centre? You've got one person. Okay, yep, there's a couple of nods going through your faces there. Fantastic. So in Victoria, we are very lucky. There are 52 community legal centres available in Victoria, and we're one of them. Legal centres are either do work associated with a particular type of law. So people may have heard of the Tenants Union or Job Watch or Women's Legal Service, where they just do areas of law related to those specific things. Or we have the generalist legal centres, which is what we are, and hence the name Eastern. So our geographic location is obviously in the east. I happen to be a local Whitehorse resident, just live up the road, so it's really lovely to see so many people in my community that care about safety, and it's great to be here to present to you tonight. So my role is to manage the Box Hill site, and the Box Hill site is at the Town Hall building in Whitehorse, the beautiful old building, which is a pleasure to work in such a lovely space. And we look after the area of Whitehorse, of Burundara and of Manningham. We have another office in Baronia, and they look after Knox and Marinda. And we have a third office, which has been open about 18 months now, and that's in Hillsville, and that looks after that massive region of the Yarra Ranges. So we look after, I think we've got about a population of 1 million people that's in our catchment area. And I put that out there just so that I can build a very realistic expectation of what we actually can do and what we can't do in that space of helping people. So that's our community legal centre. The lovely part is that what we do is free. We receive some money that comes from the state government, from the federal government, and lots of other projects. But the thing is that we don't have to charge for our services, and it's very nice in this day and age to provide a community service that is truly free. There's no hidden charges. What we give you is the best we can do for the resources that we've got. But I do say when we're talking about things like neighbourhood disputes and the kinds of things we might talk about today, I'll be very realistic about what we can actually do in a legal advice space, because we have to prioritise what the kind of legal problems are that are coming into our office, and we have to prioritise the particularly vulnerable people that live in our community that really don't have any other choices. And sometimes people come to us and they might be a bit upset that we can't give them the service they're looking for, but unfortunately we just don't have those sorts of resources. So that's a community legal centre. That's what we do. So what do you think the types of area of law that we might be able to give people assistance with, or what do you think the legal problems would be in this area that people might want to come and see?
Family violence.
Family violence. Congratulations to you for naming my first topic that I would like to speak about. And good on you for saying that. When I go out to do any kind of community safety, and I'm very happy to talk about the issues that have been flagged by Ray around neighbourhood disputes and all those sorts of things, but sadly for us, and often for our colleagues in the Victoria Police, the number one thing that we are dealing with on a daily basis is family violence and family violence related incidents. So 60% of the casework we do at our office is all about family violence. It might be family law, it might be separation issues, but inevitably there is an element of violence that comes from that relationship. And we wish that wasn't the case, but unfortunately it is. And clearly that becomes a priority area of work for us, particularly when we're looking at keeping women safe and children safe in our community. So family violence is definitely something that we do a lot of work in. I have brought some resources with me tonight, which I'll leave for you. And I would like to think that none of you here need to know this information, but I also know from the studies that we do, research tells us there are people that you know in your world that family violence is impacting on you. I know that for a fact. I think the statistics are that about 1 in 4 women, I think is what we're looking at the moment, whose life will be impacted by family violence at some stage. And when I say family violence, any ideas? I feel so bad, it's such a terrible topic to talk about first up, but you brought it up. Any ideas of what kind of, we all know what violence means in the sort of movies, and it's the punch and it's the physical hits, but violence as far as the law is concerned is actually interpreted quite differently. Any ideas what sort of things would be regarded as violence under legislation, under the law? Threats, absolutely. Threats, verbal, shouting, demeaning, economic abuse, absolutely, big problem around this region. Anything else? Harassing.
Sorry, you said a big problem around this region?
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of the kind of figures we're talking about in this area, we provide lawyers to Ringwood Magistrates Court 3 days of every week, every Monday and every Tuesday and every Friday. There are so many cases down at Ringwood Magistrates Court that are just intervention orders and just about people getting safety, whether it's women or parents or whatever it might be, asking for intervention orders, and those people come from Whitehorse, Manningham, Burundara and all the other areas. So yes, they're very much in this area. It is very much. Family violence cuts across all socioeconomic groups, it cuts across all neighbourhoods. Issues in Burundara, it's in Manningham, it's in all the regions around here. It's often more hidden. As we say, if the fences get higher, it's harder to hear, but it's definitely still an issue for people in this region as well. So, it unfortunately ties up a lot of our resources, and we wish it wasn't the case. The good news is, of course, with Rosie Batty, who hopefully you've all heard or seen at some point, being named Australian of the Year, she's had a platform to actually raise some publicity around these issues, and it means that people are starting to have these conversations, and the more we talk about it, the more chance we've got to ever change behaviours and keep people and women and children safe. So that's family violence. Any other ideas of other topics that we might be doing down at the Legal Centre?
Yes.
Any other ideas?
Neighbourhood disputes.
Neighbourhood disputes, yeah. We do get people coming to us with neighbourhood disputes, and as I said, it's limited what we can actually do in that space. We have 2 ways of seeing clients. One is during the day, where we make appointments to see our paid lawyers, and then at night time we are very lucky, just as Neighbourhood Watch is run by volunteers, we have a lot of our services also run by volunteers. So we have 120 volunteers in our service, and they are either qualified lawyers or they're law students, and they see clients at night in our night service. So I've got people down at my office now seeing people while I'm here sharing the word with you. And they are seeing people about things like neighbourhood disputes. So it's not, neighbourhood disputes is not something we can offer a day service appointment for, but we can certainly give you some general advice and information at our night service appointments. And when we say neighbourhood disputes, what kind of legal things do you think might be an issue between neighbours? Fences, absolutely. Probably the number one thing that we get a call about would be fences. There is legislation called the Fences Act. If you ever want to fall asleep quickly, that would be the thing to read. It's not exactly entertaining, but there are rules and regulations around fences, and I'm sure most of you here know that there's an expectation that people contribute towards the cost of a standard fence, and a standard fence protects people's boundaries. However, the law's limited in what it can do in that space. And my previous job before I worked here was for an organisation which I will plug a bit tonight called the Dispute Settlement Centre of Victoria. Has any of you ever heard of them?
Yes.
Fabulous organisation, can't speak of them highly enough, not just because they used to give me my pay packet, but they're very, very good at what they do. And they offer a free conciliation mediation service to people, and they try and get people to come to their own solution to their problem about the fence or the other kind of neighbourhood disputes. It's Department of Justice run it, it's completely free, they are professional in what they do. I have been trained up as a mediator and have had the privilege of running several mediations, and if you had said to me that I could spend 4 hours in a room with people talking about nothing but a fence, I would have thought you've got to be joking me. I can tell you hand on heart, I've done that many times over. And fencing is a very big issue amongst neighbours, and I'm not making light of that. We work very hard to own our property. We work very hard to have our safe place where we come home, and our fence is part of that boundary that makes us feel safe. So I understand why fences are very important to people, and I'm not being flippant when I talk about that. But unfortunately, the law, there's only so much the law can ever do, and if you are living next door to somebody and you're fighting about the fence, you can get a magistrate that can tell you, yes, you can get an order that says they have to pay half the fence, and yes, there's some laws that fit around that. But you don't have to continue living next door to that person. And to have taken them to court to get a resolution isn't a great way to solve that problem. And I strongly recommend mediation. To try it first. Sometimes people won't go, and that's okay. But it's worth a try, believe me, because the outcome, because you're part of the outcome, as opposed to a magistrate telling you what the outcome is, makes an enormous difference to neighbourhood relations thereafter. And I strongly recommend, if you're unfortunately in a dispute with your neighbours, strongly recommend that you at least give them a call at the Dispute Settlement Centre to, and they're not paying my salary anymore, so I'm not making any kind of profit from this. And it's a free service as well, which again, how many free services are left in our world? So I strongly recommend you contact them. Any other questions or any other sort of ideas about what neighbourhood disputes would be about?
Trees.
Sorry, Mr. Jones.
Have you had
Next
any
door's
problems?
trees in your spout.
Sorry.
Have you had any problems with access drive being shared by 3 or 4 buildings on the one site?
Our centre wouldn't do that, and as I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't be able to talk to you about that. Common property, are you talking about, or is
Yes.
it just to do with, is it common, like it's a common property on a sort of subdivided block, or is it who owns the land?
Oh, sorry, the land was broken up and there's a common driveway, but it's got to service 3 2-storey, totally separate buildings.
Right.
But what has happened is the social attitude of one individual to the other 2. So on many occasions, one wreck is parked in the drive and the other 2 can't get out. So,
And I'm sure for those living in that, that's a really frustrating situation to be in. And I'm sure if you were to see a lawyer that had more of a kind of property law, I suppose, is almost what you'd be looking for. But again, the Dispute Settlement Centre would be where I'd be taking that dispute to, because no matter what the lawyer says, what the law says, you still have to come to something that works for you as well, not you, whoever it is that has these access issues, and they can mediate on anything that's in a dispute. The main thing about mediation is people have to want to be in the room, because you can't get someone to agree to anything if they don't want to go. But once you get people to go in the room, it's a very, very powerful tool to be able to shift people out of conflict and shift them into a solution thinking. And I've seen amazing outcomes come out of mediation.
because the other aspect was the way the drive is used, it requires maintenance on a regular basis.
If it's a common ground, there'd be some sort of property or owners corporation that would be looking after that. As I said, it's not an area we do, and I don't know. I mean, the other thing you should know is that the Law Institute have a legal referrals register. I don't know if any of you have heard
Yes.
of that. So if you ever need to find a lawyer about a particular area of law, I strongly recommend you at least jump online or give them a call. And so the Law Institute of Victoria look after all lawyers in Victoria to make sure they're all registered and doing the right thing. They have a database of all those lawyers and they know what their specialty is. So if you've got a lawyer that specialises in family law, estate law, property law, whatever it might be, you can go on their website, put in the type of law that you want, put in the area that you live in, put in a language if you want a particular lawyer that speaks a language, and it will give you a list of the lawyers that are in your area. That way at least you know you're seeing a lawyer. Because I often say to people, lawyers are just like doctors in the sense that you've got your GPs, and we all know we go off to a GP for your standard kind of thing, and we know they're going to know a little bit about a lot of things. But we know that if we have a heart attack, we need to see the cardiologist or the specialist. Lawyers are exactly the same. So you've got your general practitioners, your suburban lawyers that know a little bit about a lot of things, and that's really useful. But if you've got a specific area of law you need a lot of advice and information about, best to go to the specialist, the person who's done that extra bit of training in that area of law. So I strongly recommend, if you're going to pay good money for a lawyer, you should look into that first. Okay, any other neighbourhood disputes or disputes? Yes.
And do you get involved with anger management?
With my staff or with no?
There are classes and that sort of thing.
When we're talking about that family conflict and that family violence space, certainly it gets to a point where men can be told by magistrates they must go to an anger management class to change their behaviour, men's change behaviour programs. They do exist out there, and there are sometimes clients that come to us and really want to make a change in their life, and we would strongly support them in trying to find a service that's going to help them with that. It's not something we would do in our centre, but we operate under holistic models. So we try very hard to not just look at what the legal problem is, we look at what all those other things that are going on in that person's life. So for example, a classic one for us, and I know Big Paul would support this, we will get a lot of people that might ring us up about something, say they've got a fine. But I say, I want to see a lawyer because I've got a fine. And okay, you make an appointment to see the person about the fine. we often will find that that person will come in with the shopping bag full of fines, and when you actually unpack them, in this area, it's a big problem in this area because of Eastlink. So we have a lot of clients, as do we know Peninsula Legal Centre do. They're at one end of Eastlink and we're at the other. So people have an enormous shopping bag of fines, and they're all Eastlink related fines. And, you know, we can have a client with $10,000, $20,000 worth of infringement fines. And you think, gosh, they're not being very responsible in what they're doing with their car and their life. But when you scratch the surface a little bit more and ask some questions, potentially she may be in an incredibly controlled relationship, and he's either, we've had situations where he keeps the fines and hides them from her and doesn't let her know they're even there until, because he puts them in her name, and until she's lost her licence. She's got so many demerit points, she's lost her licence. So it's about control and power, and we often find that fines is actually an area of law, and people talk about family violence in lots of ways, but they don't always realise how much it can impact on what's happening in that house. So we have a holistic approach. We never judge a book by its cover. We don't think that's the legal problem they've got. We try and ask the right questions to find out what's actually going on for that person behind the scenes. And that can be challenging on the resources we've got. Yeah.
I'm interested in your comments. It seems to be that the majority of the domestic violence problems are being looking at the male in the relationship. Is that universally the case?
Statistics certainly tell us that women are predominantly victims and men are predominantly perpetrators. I will always acknowledge that there are other situations where that happens, but that is certainly what is happening. That is certainly commonplace.
And what about the underlying factors? I mean, can it be poverty, or are there other triggers that facilitate violence?
It's such a great question, and it's really interesting. I've actually been in this area. I started with Victoria Legal Aid in the mid-80s, I'm throwing my age here, and back in those days there was very much an attitude of, oh, it's a domestic, we don't need to know about that, we don't want to know, it's not our problem. That was an attitude. And then I've watched, and we didn't even have legislation then about keeping people safe, and so I've watched over that journey of 30 odd years that we were there, and now we're where we are now, where we talk about it very openly, and police are very active in keeping women safe and play a very pivotal role in keeping people safe in community in that space. So we're now moving into that space because there used to be that conversation that would happen around, oh, but he drinks a lot, it's the alcohol, oh, but it's the gambling, oh, but it's this, or but it's that. But now we're moving into a new space of saying violence is violence and there's no excuse, full stop. We don't take it any further than that, we just say that's the fact. Certainly there are contributing factors that make life difficult for people, but lots of people can be poor, doesn't mean they're going to be violent. And we were actually very lucky. I don't know if any of you saw Malcolm Turnbull, our Prime Minister, who had been in the job for 10 whole days, and despite your politics, it was a very exciting time for us. We got a phone call from the Prime Minister's office on a Wednesday, and this is our little tiny community legal centre in Box Hill. Got a phone call from the Prime Minister's office and said, would it be okay if the PM comes to your office tomorrow? He's coming to Melbourne and he wants to make a big announcement about family violence. So, needless to say, we went, sure. This was 12 o'clock the day before, I swear you. He was coming at 8:15 the next morning. And I, what do I say? No, actually, I've got a team meeting. Sorry, doesn't suit. So, he came to our office with Rosie Batty and with Ken Lay and a cast of 1,000 media, which was great. And it was such an exciting time for us to see the PM come out and make statements about those sorts of statements about disrespecting women is the root of where family violence comes from. And to have our leaders saying those sorts of exciting things, and genuine tears from Rosie Batty, from Ken Lay, from all of our staff were genuinely crying, because it was such a momentous, for those of us who've been having this battle for so long, to get to that point. And the really exciting thing for the eastern suburbs is they made an announcement. We've been very fortunate to get a women's safety package. So we are going to be getting money from the Commonwealth Government for the next 3 years to run a women's safety package, and that will be about employing a lawyer and a social worker and some other services to be able to support women in this eastern region. And there's only 12 in the country that got this money, and only 3 in Victoria, 1 in Mildura and us, and another smaller service in the city. So that's a real kudos. That's fantastic for us to get. It's fantastic for this community to get that.
Can you explain the safety package?
Well, I don't know it yet because we haven't. All we know is we're getting money, and it's that, you know, how politicians work. They came out and they made this big announcement, and we didn't know anything about it, and we're sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is very good," but we still haven't got any paperwork. We don't know much more than that, but it will happen, and we'll be consulting lots of good community people in our partnerships before we look into that.